Hey everybody, it's Harry from Daddy BBQ, the YouTube channel that teaches you how to master barbecue so you can spread barbecue love. I've shown you guys my competition steak recipes, and a few of you have used my recipe to win awards. I know that at least several of you across the United States have taken SCA walks and used the recipe I posted recently. Also, I heard internationally, I've had people from South America, also as far as Australia, who have won first place using my recipes. So you guys asked me for more competition steak recipes so you can get a kind of a variation of different styles. Today, I'm going to have 4 ribeye steaks here. These are SCA cut 1 1/4 inch style steaks. I'm going to show you a control sample using just salt and pepper compared against 3 other competition recipes which I'm going to show you. A lot of you have told me that, Harry, a good steak only needs salt and pepper. Well, that's true for home cooking, and I have many steaks that I cook this way at home. But in competition, when you're up against 50 fierce Texas teams, I honestly don't think that just salt and pepper will do the job. So we're going to show a control sample cooking using just regular salt and pepper, cook it perfectly. We're going to compare against 3 other different SCA style recipes I'm going to show you that will up your steak game, take it up to competition level. So we'll see which one reigns supreme in this SCA ribeye competition steak shootout. Free-range organic rosemary garden. So if you want free rosemary, this is where you get it. And I'm in a parking lot near Diamond Bar where I live. So we're ready to harvest some rosemary so we can cook those wonderful SCA competition steaks for you. Alright, and these should be good enough for the steaks. In an SCA contest, you're usually given a USDA choice ribeye. And it's usually boneless, and usually you're given something that you can see here I have at my Sam's Club. This is very typical of what you get in an SCA contest. You get a whole bunch of steaks put on the table, and then you go by the kind of wooden chip draw. You come up and you pick your steak. So what you want to do is you want to look for something along the lines of a good rib cap. So the rib cap is the spinalis dorsi muscle, which is this one here. And you want a nice rib cap that's nicely marbled, and then you want also an eye that has a nice even layer of fat on it. So the 4 parameters are essentially size, and then the symmetry of the rib cap muscle, and then the striation and the marbling. So of all these here, this one looks very good because it's got a nice little thick rib cap or spinalis dorsi muscle. On this one here, this one has a very small one, so this is not a good contest steak. We're also looking for the evenness of the eye. So among these ones here, I think the eye on, say, like this one looks very good, very nice and even here on the eye. This also has a pretty good spinalis dorsi, so this will be a good steak. This one is a little bit too big and a little bit misshapen, so in a contest between this one and this one, I would pick this one. Also, this one has nice little white flecks of marbling on the rib eye here. So the judges basically will take a kind of like a cut. They'll judge your doneness through a cut right down the middle of the eye, and then the judges will only eat the spinalis dorsi or the rib cap muscle. So for contest steak versus home eating, it's a completely different criteria. You're looking for basically a doneness to be judged on the cut through the eye, which is this one here. And then the judges will only eat the rib cap. They're not going to eat the eye. So, you know, don't waste your time trying to pick one that has a good eye, because all you're going to be judged on in the eye in terms of is the doneness. So, for example, like this one here has a very small spinalis dorsi. So this will not be a good one for a contest. So there you have it. This is how you pick a steak when you're presented with literally dozens of steak put on the table at a SCA contest during the steak selection process. I'm going to trim the 4 steaks to SCA competition style and trim off the heel, which is this part here, and then kind of trim off some of the fat on the edge, like so here. So this is a competition trim. So typically at home I wouldn't trim it this way. We're gonna do 4 steaks. So the first one is the control. using the salt and pepper that all of you guys asked me to try, which I already know what the result will be, but I'm just gonna amuse myself and listen to you and try a normal salt and pepper steak. The one toothpick is going to be the one that I'm going to do with the original recipe that you saw me do in my part 1 SCA competition steak. That video has over 1 million views now, so I guess you guys really want to know how to cook steak. Happy to oblige. I've got lots of steak recipes, and I'm going to show you a couple extra ones today. So this is going to be the original recipe that you saw on part 1 with the head country, a little bit of butcher's phosphate and tenderizer together with the moolah rub and a touch of MSG on the number 1, which is this one here, one toothpick. The second toothpick will be kind of another variation I've tried, which is using a brisket injection, which is a beef injection. I'm going to use 2 toothpicks to demarcate that. We're going to use the injection from the brisket together with my moolah rub. Also, we're going to let this one rest approximately about maybe 30 minutes, because the injection is pretty salty. This one we're going to let it rest the normal 45 minutes. And then the last one is I'm going to do a salt crusted steak, which is kind of a way to cook steak, and we're gonna basically let it sit in kind of a salt mound for about an hour. So 1 hour, about 30 minutes on injection, and then about 45 minutes using the original recipe, and then we'll do 1 hour soak on the salt and pepper. I have a video out there that you probably have seen where I did different tests on how long the salt should stay on the steak before cooking. I think through my little anecdotal testing, it looked like 1 hour was about right for a steak. So your mileage may vary, but in my previous test, it looked like 1 hour was best to salt the steak before cooking for maximum flavor and saltiness. So here we go, let's start trimming. In an SCA contest, the judges will only eat the spinalis dorsi, which is the rib cap here. So you typically want to trim a lot of the fat off the rib cap, and the doneness is judged by a diagonal cut through the eye. So you have to cook it to a medium pink center to score a 10 on the doneness scale. Now, I did make up the doneness scale for those of you who have been, leaving comments saying that the only way a steak should be eaten is medium rare. Is, hey, knock yourself out. I'm not here to cook the steak for my liking. I'm here to win a SCA Steak Cook-Off Association. The rules require you to cook basically the center here to be a warm medium pink, warm medium pink, while not overcooking the rib cap. So the judges will only eat this muscle here, but you're judged on the appearance on this cut. So the judges don't eat this, they eat this. So it's not that easy to cook it with a warm medium pink center on a cut on the eye, while not drying out the rib cap, the spinalis dorsi muscle. So it requires a little bit of skill to cook and win a SCA contest. So I'm going to try trimming this piece off here. And when I get to trimming the fat, I want to mention a little something here. So you can see that there is a fat that covers this part here where the eye and then the rib cap connects. So here's the competition black belt tip I want to show you, is that if you are trimming for an SCA contest, you probably want to leave this piece of fat here, this fat here, to be sort of very, very leave it on. Don't trim this part off, because if you trim this part off, right, the spinalis will detach and this piece will kind of flip up unless you tie it down. So as an insurance policy, you can also tie your steaks on the edge with a cotton twine, or you're going to be a little bit careful when you trim this. Don't trim all the fat off this part here, because it will kind of fold backwards and split if the fat is removed here. So I'm going to trim this part here. I'm going to leave this part because they're not going to eat it. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I like to trim the heel off. This is something very optional. At home cooking, obviously this is a good eating piece, so don't lose this in home cooking, but this is a competition steak. So we're not interested in yield, we're interested in winning a contest. So this one looks pretty good. Get a little bit off here. You want to get all the fat off the spinalis, because that's where the judges will be kind of taking a bite out of. And this looks pretty good. And I left this piece here. I'm going to tie a couple to show you the technique of tying. But if you kind of leave this piece on, it's less likelihood of it kind of blowing out when you cook it and kind of peeling off this way. You can save these little kind of chunks of fat, and you can use it to grease your grill grates. As before, we are going to go ahead and smoke the steak, because I like a smoke followed by a sear. We're gonna do the X flip method on the grill grate, and get it to about a warm medium pink center. That's probably approximately about 128-ish, 130 degrees. And the last one here, steak number 4, which is a 3 toothpicks. We're gonna do a salt crusted steak, which is another technique for providing flavor and tenderness to your steak. So there you have it. All 4 steaks are suitably trimmed. Let's move on now to the seasoning these competition style steaks and show you guys how we tie to minimize any kind of blowout of the rib cap muscle. For the beef injection, I'm going to use the Cosmos Reserve Blend injection from my friend Darren Cosmos. This was one of the highly scoring ones in my 6 brisket injection shootout. And I'm going to mix it up with a little bit of beef paste. And to the liquid that we're making for the Cosmos injection, I'm going to add a little bit of Miners or Jew beef prep. This is basically a highly concentrated beef base here. Add about maybe about 1 teaspoon here. A little bit goes a long way. The key in making an injection or brisket is you have to make it salty enough, but not too salty. So you got to balance the saltiness. So for those of you who live in the ocean, you know that the ocean water is about 3%, 3.1% to 3.5% depending on part of the ocean you're in. When I make injections for briskets and for my briskets and so on, and for steaks, I want to make sure that it's salty enough. I like to try to get it towards the level of maybe saltier than the ocean. So you can imagine ocean water, if you taste it, is yucky. We're gonna make the beef injection to the saltiness where it's actually yuckier. So this is ready to be kind of blended. Mix it up a little bit here. Gonna pulse it for just a couple of seconds. A bit of a foam. We'll just let it settle and let the foam settle out in the refrigerator. Let's work on our control steak now, and it's basically going to be just salt and pepper. So I'm just use some kosher salt here. Season it to about the right amount of saltiness here. Pepper. Put it down. Over, season the sides. Alright, this will sit for an hour and we let it come up to room temperature. For my second sample, I'm gonna do the recipe that you guys tell me you like. Since it has 1 billion views, we're gonna go with the recipe that I used the last time. We used a little bit of Hay Country marinade to kind of get a little marinade on the side here. Then on the back side. We apply a little bit of the Butcher Barbecue phosphate TR, just a little bit of that. What he has, the way it works is it's got phosphates. So phosphates cause an ionic exchange in the muscle and cause a repulsion of the ions, and then it makes it kind of like plump up a little bit, the phosphates. He's also got a tenderizer, I believe it's called papain, which is derived from the green skin of the papaya. And I'm gonna add the third thing, which is the little bit of accent or MSG. So for those of you who send me all those complaints about MSG, please do your homework, do some more reading about what MSG is. So I'm not gonna fight you guys over the use of MSG. And I have videos out there, I'm gonna leave in the link that tell you kind of what MSG is and what it's not. Yeah, so if you're anti-MSG, please don't use it. That doesn't bother me. All right, the last one is the Moolah beef wrap, like I showed you before. Many teams around the world have used this recipe. And actually done really well, taken SCA steak walks. I know at least there was a team from Australia. I think in Melbourne, I believe. They said that they won first place, got a trip to America using my Moolah beef wrap. There you go. All right, I'm gonna let this sit about 45 minutes. Gotta get happy before we smoke it and then we cook it. We're gonna cook all 4 sample steaks the same way. We're gonna smoke followed by a sear. In our third sample, we're gonna use some of our Cosmos Reserve Blend injection. You can use any injection you like. This one seems to work really well. And I did a little shootout in a prior video. And you can try to use the same injection if you like. I'm just gonna put a few squirts in there just to give it a little bit of flavor. Focusing primarily on the spinalis dorsi, which is where the judges are going to be eating. Don't worry so much about the main eye, even though I give it a couple of squirts here. Okay, that's good enough. Get some of my moolah, first place sirloin and brisket, KCBS USA wrap here. Some of the edges. All right, we'll let this rest about 30 minutes. Before we start to smoke and sear. The fourth recipe I'm going to show you that we're going to have 3 toothpicks in it is essentially a salt crusted steak. And we're going to douse it with a lot of salt and cover it and let it sit for about 20 minutes. So I'm using basically diamond crystal kosher salt, and I'm going to put a lot of salt on it. So this technique of salting is one of the oldest cooking methods. It goes back to, I think, traces in Egyptian times and all the way to China. I think the first recorded time method of cooking with salt was actually in Guangdong in China in the 1600s. And this method of cooking is extremely kind of common. I think the Italians use it, the Sicilians, kind of salt crusted fish. Typically it's done with kind of like a white egg whites mixed into like a salt to create like a sand mixture. It seems like a lot. I'm going to really thoroughly coat it, but it's really going to be washed off after about a 15-20 minute soak. And this is something that the French have used, the Spanish have used, and it's like a lot of salt, but we're going to just let the salt penetrate the meat for about 20 minutes. And it's a lot of salt that I'm using here. It's got to be basically coarse salt, right? So you got to use like a coarse kosher salt. Do not try to use table salt. It will be too salty. So we're gonna let it sit about 20 minutes and let it get happy. And then we're gonna season them all up and cook it. This one has to be washed, obviously, after you salt it. And this will be the fourth recipe, which is the salt crusted ribeye steak, SCA competition style. All right, time's up. We're gonna rinse off the salt now. Take it out of the salt bath here. It may seem like a lot, but it will be fine. Make sure you rinse off all the salt, sides, and you can see that it's become a little bit more pliable. The salt basically denatures the protein, so not only do you get the tenderizing effect of the salt or denaturing protein, but also the salt now has penetrated the meat and it's going to make it actually more moist, because the NaCl salt chemical ions will repel each other, pushing the proteins apart, and therefore will allow you to basically have a more moist steak. And that little hint of saltiness will help. So it helps in terms of flavor, moisture retention, and denaturing the protein, making it a little bit more tender. So for example, like this one here, right? I'm already noticing that it's going to have a break here in terms of the spinalis. So this will be a good candidate for a kind of a tie. So we're going to tie it with some string before we cook it. Okay, just make sure they get all the salt off. Even got a kind of nice red color. You can see it here. That looks really, really good. Ready to go. So you tie the steak together if you like, because if you have a split in the rib cap, it's gonna basically come apart. So it's good. Like so. And we're gonna season it just with the rub, just a little bit. The wire rack. So seasoning with a moolah again. Just a light coat, just a little bit less than you would normally do since it's already been salt crusted. It's got a little flavor of the salt in there. Get it on the edge here. So, all right, it's ready for smoking.
275.
in a little smoke, and we'll smoke it until the internal temperature is about 100 and 110 or so. We'll sear it on a grill grate. We smoked them until they were about 110 degrees. They're ready to be seared on the grill grates. Just clean it up a little bit here. We want the grill grates to be about 600 degrees and sear them for about a minute on each side. We're going to get kind of internal temperature into the warm medium pink center required by the SCA, which is about 138 degrees. Oil the grates here. Let's check the temperature. 600 on the mark here. Ready to get started. Ready to put the steak on. We're gonna put the first one on at the 2 o'clock position. That's the control sample. This one is the original recipe. Cosmos injection is number 3. And then the last one will be the salt crusted. In about a minute. Let's pick it up and flip it over to 2 o'clock position. Temperatures 120. Alright, we're going to put it to 10 o'clock now. Alright, we're going to go final flip now, 10 o'clock. Done. Clean it up. The steaks have cooled down to about 100 degrees, so I'm gonna go ahead and slice into them now. I'm gonna arrange it from the first one here, which is the control sample. Second one is my original recipe that I showed you guys. This one is the one with the Cosmos injection, and the last one is the salt crusted one. So let me remove the toothpick here. Okay, we're gonna judge them based on SCA method. So I'm gonna basically slice into the diagonally into it. See if I can get a warm medium pink center. That's pretty close. Cut out the spinalis on this one. This one is the one that's a control sample, the salt and pepper. And I mentioned to you guys that the judges only eat the spinalis. So I'm going to cut the spinalis like so. And Mr. Beans is jumping on my leg here, waiting for his share here. And the third one is the one with the Cosmos injection here. And the last one. Before I start eating, this is the control sample with just salt and pepper. Second one is my competition SCA recipe that you saw in part 1 that has over 1 million views. And this is the new recipe with the Cosmos injection in it. And the last one is following an ancient tradition going back to China, so 1600, where we do a salt crust. So salt crust, Cosmos injection, the what do you call one with the head country, and then the butcher TR phosphates, and then the salt pepper. Let's go. Let's give it a taste test here. Okay, control sample first. Nothing wrong with that. It's like a regular well-cooked steak. This one's a competition recipe. All right, this is better than this. More complex flavor, juicier. All around the taste is better. Texture is about the same. Okay, let's move on to the injected one. Also pretty good. Flavor is not as complex as this one. Both are equally beefy, but this one is not so complex. A little bit not as strong beef flavor as this one here. Try the last one, which is the salt crusted. There's one here. It's very tender. Also very, very good. Believe it or not, I shouldn't have salted this one less because I soaked it in the salt crust for 20 minutes. I was worried that it might be too salty. So guess what? This is the least salty. So this is a tad under seasoned. So I would say if, like 10 was a perfectly seasoned steak, this would be an 8.5, which is kind of odd because I purposely put less of my moolah rub on this one because I felt it would be too salty, but I was wrong. I should have seasoned this exactly as I seasoned these two, because these two, the salt flavor is absolutely spot on. But this one really has great flavor. There is a certain amount of tenderness to it because the protein is denatured by the salt crust method. Also, it's kind of very moist. So actually, technique-wise, wow, I have to say that this technique is better than this, except it's under seasoned. And it's my fault because I purposely put less, thinking that the salt would penetrate the meat, but really the salt didn't penetrate the meat. So what happened is, my little single data point here, which is very anecdotal, is that essentially the salt crust denatured the protein. It also penetrated enough to allow the meat to essentially hold more moisture because the sodium chloride ions will repel each other, pushing the protein aside, allowing the salty solution to enter. So my mistake was, this is great technique, but I undersalted it because I salted it less, maybe like 2/3 the normal amount, thinking that this would be oversalted if I tried to put it the same exact as number 2 and number 3. But flavor-wise, very good, okay? So that was the first pass, first impression. So like I always do on my videos, so that it's kind of a clear conclusion, I go back and I repeat and eat everything again. So I'm gonna go back and eat everything one more time. Okay, we're going back round number 2. I've eaten my way through 2 rounds of the steaks, and this is a revelation to me, which I want to share with you. So first of all, the salt pepper, great ribeye steak, nothing wrong with this. Very plain, in my opinion, in an SCA contest against 50 fierce Texas team, no chance. All right, so this is good. So please stop sending me those comments and hate mail saying that the only way to cook the steak is salt and pepper, because in a contest, this is great for home cooking. But against 50 strong teams, forget about it. They ain't gonna cut it. This recipe that I share with you that has 1 million views is still very, very good. So this is absolutely a great recipe, great depth of flavor, very complex, very good. The tenderness and all depend on how well you cook it. The color is basically has to do with how long you keep it in the pit to meet the SCA doneness. The one with the Cosmos injection, also very good. If I had to change the recipe, this is as good as this, but this is not as complex. So I think the injection did not sit long enough. I only put it in for about like 30 minutes. So if I had to modify this, I would say I would guess 1 hour, 1 hour 15 on this. That would be probably my recommendation. This 45 is about perfect, and this 1 hour is good. The saltiness is perfect, but the steak is kind of plain. Very tasty, but plain. And then the outlier here is this Chinese salt crust technique here, going back so many generations, 400-year-old recipe, salt crust. This one really works because I really like the way the protein was denatured, making it very tender. I love the way the salt ions penetrated enough to make the meat really, really retain moisture. Look at that beautiful color and the tenderness, and it's really soft and very pliable. And the only problem is I under-seasoned this. So in my next SCA contest, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually combine this method number 4 with the method number 2, which was my original SCA recipe, and see what happens. Because this one is renders the texture to be really tender and moist and juicy. And then this method gives it maximum flavor. So I'm going to use the salt crust technique, the denaturing of the protein and the dispersion of the NaCl ion to cause repulsion among the protein strands here with the microfibrils, and then use this technique combined with this technique for outstanding SCA entry. So there you have it, a little bit long explanation, a little bit of science, but you know me, you come to my channel because it's super nerdy, but this is how you win contests, how you become a world champion, is you gotta apply science. Now, having said that, of course, the expert is right here, Mr. Beans. You're the expert, right? So we gotta let you test. So on this very highly unscientific test, I've taken sample number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 for Mr. Beans to try. Good boy, stay. Okay, go ahead, eat. Oh, wow. Oh, no, number 1, okay. Okay, he went for the number 1. So the salt and pepper, he went first. He smells the second one. Ooh, he goes for my video number part 1 recipe. Okay, he likes it, and then he goes to number 4, which is the salt crust. And the last one he's gonna eat is the one with the injection. So there you have it. Beans. So you picked the salt and pepper. So I guess Mr. Beans from now on will be known as the salt and pepper dog. He picked the salt and pepper steak over all the other steaks that I gave him today, licking the plate clean. You come to my channel to see me do stuff like that. So I really appreciate you stopping by, checking my video out. And this is part 2. So if you guys like this video, please like and subscribe and share. Tell all your friends that Harry produced a couple of new SCA recipes. So I guess now that I finished part 2, there's only one conclusion. I've got to do part 3 now. I'm going to combine the version with the salt crust, combined with my number 2 recipe, which is the one that I showed you originally in video number 1. So until the next time, we will see ya.